Well, good evening and welcome back to another episode of What's So Funny, the show that probes the minds, the brains, and the psyches of the people who make the funny. Tonight, the roving What's So Funny studios invites Lynn Shawcroft in for a chat. You might have heard her name as the wife of the late, great Mitch Hedberg, who we just heard earlier. But did you know she's an accomplished comedian herself? Did you know she's also an accomplished Canadian? You did? Okay then. But there's plenty more you'll learn this hour. She also opens up about Hedberg in a way she's never publicly done so before. So let's hop in the WSF mobile and head down to English Bay to catch up with Lynn Shawcroft. Lynn Shawcroft, welcome to my car.
I love your car.
Do you?
We're parked at English Bay in Vancouver in the West End.
You want to make out?
Yes.
Yes?
Oh my God. I'm trying to remember if I've ever made out here. Okay. I know we escaped the music and a fire truck or something just went by. Hello.
Hey, yeah, you were saying that you used to live around here.
Yes. I lived in Vancouver. My sister moved out here years ago, quite a bit older than me. And then I moved out for a few years and I lived in the West End, South Granville. I love it.
How many years are we talking?
About 3 years.
And what era?
90s.
90s.
Yes.
But you're not from here.
I'm not from here. I'm from Ontario. And in the 90s, and I don't know if you've ever heard of comedian Bonnie McFarlane.
Of course.
Her and I became friends in Vancouver when I worked out here. I worked at the Punchline as a waitress, and she worked as a door girl. But right before I got here, she had become a comedian.
I had heard that she worked as a door person.
Yep.
At Punchline. I didn't know you worked as a waitress there.
Yes. Kind of when she finished dooring and became joking, I was waitressing. Yeah.
She's hilarious.
She's so funny. She's got a great podcast.
I know.
There's so many
listen to
podcasts.
it. My wife hates me. And I love it when it gets uncomfortable.
Yeah, and it really is. It's real. Yeah.
Yeah. No. It sounds totally real.
They're funny though.
Yeah.
But I was hanging out with her recently, and so they were just, it's Rich Boss and Bonnie McFarlane. They were just hanging out, and I'm like, "Well, how's the podcast?" She goes, "Well, the podcast happens," and then I start thinking, "We're the people in the podcast," and then I don't really know what's real anymore because you know what I mean. Like that's real. So then she thinks that, and then they're like, "Oh, do we hate each other?" So it's a confusing life reality.
I like to believe that they really do hate each other.
For sure. Oh, definitty.
Okay. Good.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, well, when they're arguing, nothing's like pretend about it. For sure.
So you were a wait person, waitress. I don't know what to call you. Yeah.
Wait lady
at a comedy club. Obviously, you were thinking, I like comedy.
Yeah, but even then, I don't know, comedy now, there's podcasts, there's people like you, even back then when I worked there, it was still one of those like, how do you become a comedian? How do you know how to do it? Now, there's so many behind the scenes, like I feel like now if you're a really young person and you want to do comedy, you would know how to do it. Like, you got to go to open mics or you listen a lot about it, or you can read it online. Even when I was working as a waitress, I was like, how do you do this?
Right. It is funny. Like tonight we were just at an open mic night.
Yes.
And there were quite a few first timers up there. And I was struck by disregarding their material, how they knew how to act like a comedian.
They were completely almost like formed. I mean, they can seem that it's still, no matter what, you still want to say it's going to take a million years. But yeah, they knew that they all kind of had a persona. They understood jokes. They understood how to be in front of an audience. They even could comment on being within it. Whereas I think when I first started, you'd be like, here's some jokes and you don't know what's going on. Yeah. Don't you think they seem, you're right, informed.
Yeah.
And because there's so much. It's
comedy culture.
Yes.
So when did you start?
Oh, I don't remember.
It was in Toronto. I know this because our last week's guest, Tim Reichert, said he was at your very first
Oh, really?
show.
Yeah. Because I didn't do it for a long time and Bonnie had done it and she, started doing really well, really quick. And she would she was ballsy. She was like, I'm going on tour and I'm a feature. And I go, what does that mean? She goes, I don't know, but I'm doing it. And I didn't do it for a long time. And then I just did an open mic and I never really jumped into it too much. I was doing open mics. longer guest sets. And then I got Montreal Comedy Festival, and I kind of got deals, and I still didn't have many jokes. And then I met.
How did you get to Montreal?
I went to LA, and Bonnie was living there, and I did a set, and then I just kind of did a showcase. And I think I was, like, they said I was really green, and then I sent them this postcard that my roommate drew of me to the thing. And I don't know, I got it, and I was still an open micer. Like, I hadn't really done anything, and I got a deal.
What?
Yeah, and I actually met Mitch Hedberg. We might talk about my future husband there briefly, to the point of, like, Lynn Shawcroft, this is Mitch Hedberg, and I just saw his head and hair.
And you knew who he was?
No, I didn't know who he was. And he was just, later we talked about it. He goes, I remember that festival, and you had some heat, and I really wanted some, like, I was so ready. And he got a deal too. Then I met him a couple of years later, and I was still bartending and not doing much stand-up. And I met Mitch Hedberg, like, officially falling in love in, like, 1998 in Toronto.
What, was it a club?
Yeah, I knew what happened was I was down in New York doing something, and I knew who he was at that point as far as a comedian. I'd seen him perform in Los Angeles a couple of sets, and I knew he was really funny. Like, I just knew. And I came back, and I was living in Toronto, and I knew he was in town, and then I bumped into him at the Rivoli. They have that alt night, which has been going on forever. And I had a set that night, and he was there. And I just was kind of like, well, I'll introduce myself and tell him a little bit about Toronto. And like, we kind of hung out that night, and then started hanging. He was there for like 3 weeks at some club. 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
Yeah, he was doing 3 weeks at a club. And he'd just got
because
a huge
he was known?
No, he had just been to Montreal that year. So this is a couple of years later when I did Montreal, kind of open mic-y, got a deal a bit, came back and forth, was doing open mics. And then I met him, and he got a huge deal that year from Fox Television. And he was like all the talk. Lots of people got deals back then.
You got a deal.
I got a deal. I know. So then he was in Toronto. So then we just started hanging out. We fell in love. And then...
How quickly?
Like a few days later. I think he thought I was too much of a. I think he didn't, cause like we were just hanging out jokingly. He was with this comic that was kind of cock blocking us. But then we started hanging out. We started
female comic?
No, a male.
A male? Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. What am I thinking?
I think that comic was cock blocking everyone from Mitch. Like, you know,
You're right.
But I could tell Mitch was special for sure, and everybody was
as a
into him.
comic.
Oh yeah, definitely. And we just hung out, and then he went back, like, we, had a bit of a thing, and then he went back to New York, and then we started calling each other, and then he flew back 2 weeks later, and then he said to me, meet me in Los Angeles a few months later at this terminal at this time. And I did, and then we just...
Did he think that you would? Or
yeah, we
was
sort
it
of
kind
talked
just
about it,
like a joke?
but it was like, no, it was kind of a real thing, but I was kind of like, I don't know if I can. And I did, and we met each other, and then we were never apart since then.
1999?
1999, and we just got married a few months later.
Yeah, where'd you get married?
San Francisco.
Just a few people?
Nobody, just us, not even a witness, and we didn't tell anyone for 6 months. Oh, yeah, we didn't really, because I had an ex and he had an ex, and we just kind of were also like, I don't know how to be married, and we didn't really talk about it ourselves.
Yeah.
And then we just started telling people.
Either.
I know. It's like, I was like, what do you mean I'm a what? Like, it was a weird, it was kind of a fun secret.
Word.
Yeah, like, what do you mean I'm in a marriage?
My wife.
Yeah.
So back up a bit, though,
Okay.
because you said you weren't doing much stand-up comedy, and yet you said I was in New York for something, and then I saw him in L.A. Like, what were you doing?
Yeah. Well, with my deal, I got a deal from ABC. So I went to Montreal, and I kind of got a deal, what a deal means is like a development deal. And back in like the late 90s, early 2000s, they were giving comics lots of deals from the Montreal Comedy Festival, because all the agents and managers would go up there, and it was, like the time when Seinfeld and Roseanne and all that post that Tim Allen. So they were giving comics deals. So I got a kind of like mini weird deal, and it was good. It afforded me to like go to LA for pilot season and do a bit of comedy, but I was still coming back and forth, and I've always been kind of unsure of myself. And then,
but for an open micer, that was
I know. Why did I?
What were you thinking at the time?
I don't know. I think I was like, oh, I hope I don't have to bartend again. But also, in a
That
weird
was the
way, from
extent of it.
Canada, you thought if you went down with a deal, you'd have a show the next day. And if you did, oh yeah, I remember I had a deal and I went down and I went on one audition and I didn't get it. I was like, well, I guess I better go home. Like I didn't get that you have to persevere on things. And then, so I was still doing some stand up, but I, like I had a bit of money and I was saving up to move down. And then I was bartending. And then when I saw Mitch, I still only had about 8 to 10 minutes. I've always been a bit unsure of myself and not really know what's going on. And then
Not fully committed?
yes, probably 1 foot in, 1 foot out, maybe.
Because can you pinpoint why?
Probably a little bit of self-confidence and a little bit of thinking like, I have a lot of like, am I allowed or get permission issues? You know what I mean? Like someone has to tell me. And I know like validation from that didn't matter. But then I met Mitch and he took me on the road and he would say, you're opening up for me in North Dakota, do half an hour. And it was hell. It was a living hell.
Because he was known at that point and everyone wanted to see Mitch.
Well, when I first met Mitch, when I first met him, remember when I met him in LA, like meet me at this terminal at this kind of day. So we met. He was going to LA to go film his first Comedy Central special. So he recorded that. He was good. Like he was ready. He'd been on the road. He met a manager several years before who said, you're good, but go on the road and get good. So Mitch did. Like Mitch had been in the road. I feel like Mitch was on the road the minute he decided to be a comic till almost, till the day he died. Like he never really stopped going on the road. We were on the road all the time. And
he enjoyed it.
It was grueling and stuff, but he was always like, he always looked at it as, whenever we were like having like, it's too much, he was like, how lucky we are that we get to have this life. It's amazing. So he really stuck to that and he put blinders on for good or bad. You know what I mean? Staying on the road. But, he would do other things. He would go to LA and do shows and he had a deal and, he did like some sitcoms and stuff, but he like more or less, he was always touring. And now we were discussing earlier about podcasts and the internet. I can only imagine what he could have done with now being able to know what his audience was and pinpoint it. But anyway, so when I first met him, we went to LA. He did that special and he took me on the road right away. And there might have been a few people who know who he was. And then a few months later, there'd be like a table. I'd be like, oh my God, they knew. And then a few months later, there'd be like 3 tables.
Just watching it grow.
You could feel it. Like it was a real feeling like, oh, see that table over there? I could tell. And then a year and a half in, everybody did. And so when he was just like, he wanted me, he was like, you know what? If you get good, we could like rule the world. Like in comedy, we'll go on tour. We'll just get bigger in theaters. But he took me to places and be like, you're going to open up with me half an hour. And I was crying. It was awful. It was hard.
You didn't want to? No, don't.
I wanted
to push you out onto the stage.
He was a little bit like, what do you mean you don't want to do it? This is the greatest thing that's ever is. And look at these audiences and stuff. So it was crazy.
It was terrifying for you. Were the audiences receptive at all? Were they patient? Were they laughing?
I think they could probably smell my fear. Like he really believed in me and thought it was funny. But I think, you know what? I think stand-up is there's so many facets beyond even being intelligent and funny and tenacious and willing to go for it. I think I probably had some guilt feelings like, he's my husband or my boyfriend. Should I be here? Like just dumb shit that I regret completely. You were
thinking it will be perceived as nepotism.
Yeah, and just I overthought really dumb things. And Mitch kept reminding me like this. You have such an advantage. This is a great audience, and his audiences kept getting better and into him. And I think I always felt a bit weird. And yeah, I learned so much, and I obviously got better, and I opened up for him. But when I look back now, I made so many mistakes. Obviously, yeah.
No regrets.
But well, when your husband dies, you probably have regrets. But now I look back and I realize what he was really saying to me is like, come on, like we can do this. This is like the best situation. We're a couple that gets to go on the road to work together. Like what more? Like, but I think I had more self-doubt probably. But it was definitely fun, and I definitely got used to doing longer time on the road in the middle of nowhere. Plus, also, I'd already kind of fluked it a little bit, like doing a guest spot and getting Montreal. So he was trying to make me a real comedian, which is going on the road for sure.
And would he feed you tags? Would he
No.
give you lines?
Or
advice? Say, this doesn't work?
He'd be like, I hate advice, but go out there and tell... no, he was really really didn't like to give tags or advice. Because he didn't... his whole thing, he said, was like, people tried to always give me advice, but I didn't take it. But he just was like, oh... Say, for example, I ended up emceeing a lot for his shows, and I'd be like, okay, so I got to get the notes, who's coming up next week. And he'd be like, Lynn, that stuff doesn't matter. You don't worry about all that. But meanwhile, I was too worried about pleasing the club. I thought his name was on the line. You know what I mean? I was like, I got to find out, like, what are the breaks and the specials? And he'd be like, fuck that. You tell jokes. So he was a little bit like that. He was kind of forceful, but also like, do what you want, man. Yeah.
He's a bit of a savant comedically.
Yeah. What do you mean, like? Just...
Well, like he just seemed like preternaturally gifted. Like he comes out of nothing.
Yeah.
You know, like I can't pinpoint him to somebody else. I mean, I know a lot of critics said Stephen Wright, but only in the short form kind of jokes. But
I agree. And I think, I see to this day, like, Mitch Hedberg, such a great one-liner, and I'm always like, well, he didn't really write just one-liners. Like, he would write a 1-line, a 3-line, an 8-line. Like a joke like Dufresne has like 14 lines, but I think they think he's one line because you could take each one of those lines out, and it's almost like a form thing.
Standalone, yeah.
Yeah, and I know I'm going to see Mitch's dad, Arnie, tomorrow, and he talks about it. He goes, I don't even know you're like, Mitch grew up in Minnesota, loving family and stuff. But, Arnie goes, it took me years to realize he had this kind of gift and talent that he was figuring out on his own. And Mitch went out. I was like, Mitch's jobs were he left home when he was 18, going to have fun. And the 2 jobs he had in his life was a cook, like the long-haired cook in the kitchen, and a comedian. And I think, like I talked to his parents, and I said, I think Mitch would only have ended up doing something that he was really good at. Like, I think he was really searching for. Like, even if he stayed a cook, he would have been good, But yeah, I know what you mean. There's something really comedic.
Although, I mean, judging, his dad said that when he saw Mitch perform early on, he said he was horrible.
He was terrified. Yes. He was like, oh, shit.
But is that just a dad talk?
Well, I don't think people who don't watch a lot of comedy know that how weird it is in the beginning and how long it takes.
Right.
But Mitch said he bombed for years and years and years, but he knew it was going to come around.
I just saw...
He had real confidence that, like, he knew, he goes, I know I'm going to make one any one day, and I know it's going to work out. And he was willing to, like, to be shitty for so long.
His unique vocal inflections.
Mm-hmm.
I just saw a clip of him on this old TV special with Janine Garofalo hosting.
Yes, and he come out and he had that mic, and
he came out. Yeah, he had no hand mic.
Yeah,
and really so he had to walk around like a preacher.
Yeah, and he had kind of held his hands. I saw that recently.
And his style was different. Like it was more conversational.
Yes,
and it wasn't so the odd stress on words and no contractions kind of thing.
Yes, I think that it was probably. It took so many years for him to figure out how to say what he wanted to say. Like, the fact that he went down the road of taking all the fat off of his jokes. He said he was more conversational. He probably talked a little bit more about girls and pot back then. Then he just started to figure out how to write for himself. But I don't know if you ever saw him live. Like a lot of his CDs and shows are jokes. But the true thing is, like, his live performance, he would talk a lot to people. Like, when you go on Letterman, you go, joke. He almost wrote in those, like 12 jokes per Letterman. And I would see him, like, I would watch him, and his writing, like, it was almost in these stints of 12 jokes. But he often would always, like, he got into the audience, definitely with his eyes closed, but he would talk to people. We'd have joke contests and fun stuff, yeah.
On stage?
Oh, yeah. We'd, like, get people from the audience, and we'd get a bucket. We'd put everyone $1 in, and he'd hold joke contests. Like, yeah, we'd have fun.
It was an event.
Yes. But yeah, like like how people develop into their thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and it just sort of, I mean, I asked Gilbert Gottfried how, because I remember when he didn't used to squint and scream.
Yeah.
But to him, it was just a sort of an evolution. Like he can't even pinpoint it.
Yeah, like I doubt Gilbert went home one night like, what should I do?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
now wait a second. I don't think it's like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it happens, and then you end up how you feel comfortable writing about yourself. Like Mitch said, he used to write out every word of every joke before, and then by the end, and he would say, like, we'd be driving, and he'd be like, "Oh, can you write down English Bay maps, polka dots?" And then he'd have that, and then like I think comedians now, once you've been on there a long time, you can start writing your jokes a little bit on stage.
That's what I hear.
You know who you are, yeah.
I hear, looking online, there's his Letterman appearances and Comedy Central. But there's one appearance that I remember him where he absolutely killed, and I can't find it online. I think I probably have it on video.
Oh,
but
okay. Was it a TV show?
Yeah, it was. It was Mike Bullard. You remember
That's
that?
when I met him. That's the week I met him.
Yes. Oh, yeah. And Wendy Crewson was just dying on the
Oh my God, the panel.
Yeah.
Yes, and that was him. That's when I met him, and he had invited me to come down and watch the show in the audience. And I remember sitting there and watching that and going, "Oh, this guy, yeah." And the girl, he was sort of almost like flirting with the actresses from the side, totally charismatic and smiling. I think that he had worked so hard for so many years. He told me he bombed on the road for like 6 years. Every time he went to a club, he was like, "Well, that club's done for now." It was just stage time. And I think that was when he was really coming into himself. I remember that. Oh, if you have that tape, I would love to see it.
I will burn it.
I know what you mean. It was great.
Yeah, it was.
Really great.
And I think Bullard has said that, because I asked him, why aren't there, sort of a best of Mike Bullard? Because everything's on DVD now.
Sure, yeah.
And because he changed networks, they decided not to let him have anything.
It's a whole big thing.
So whatever is out there on YouTube is just from people like me who happen to record something.
So do shows like Mike Bullard, like, does every tape of that show probably exist somewhere on the planet?
I would imagine.
Probably, yeah. I remember, that's when I think I was like, And I knew. I'm like, I was like a total creep in the audience.
I know how women are.
No, but I could tell there was a feeling. I knew it. Oh my God, I thought it was, I was in love for sure.
And hot. Yeah. And so when you got married in San Francisco a few months later, just on a whim, or had you been talking about it?
We'd sort of been talking about it. When I met him at the airport, it was a little bit like, let's hang out for a few weeks and then I'll move back. And it never really happened. And then it was the New Year's Eve, 1999. It was like, let's get married. And then we did a couple months later. We just got our license and then went down one day when we were working at the Punchline in San Francisco and got married. Yeah.
And together till the end.
To the end.
And just traveling nonstop, right? And I saw that little documentaries on you and Mitch's notebooks.
Yes. By Scott Moran. He does a series called Modern Comedian. Did you see the one with Todd Glass that just came out?
No, I haven't.
He did one on Todd Glass. It's amazing. I love Todd Glass. It's about Todd throws these amazing parties, and it's so good. And Rory Scovel and Greg Barris, and so good. Kurt Brownohler. I loved that one. That was the first one. It was lovely.
Yeah. So that one, you had talked a bit about getting in arguments with Mitch,
right?
And how they hit you harder than they hit him.
Yeah, and which I'm surprised because he was an emotional person. The first year, it was emotional and heightened and big and intense and loving and sexual, and I knew he was brilliant. And we were married, and I still had that little. Mitch was really good at convincing you his way was the way, like. You know what I mean in life, and I think I had
been a cult leader.
I know everyone thinks he was kind of unconfident and nervous. He was like probably one of the most confident people I've met.
Yeah,
in a way, But I think I was like, he was always pushing a bit further in life. Like, we're allowed to do what you want. Come on, like, let's buy a house. And I think I was always trying to rein it in a bit, and I don't know why. And I think he was, telling me like just sort of. Have you ever met someone and you fall in love and it's the first person, all the things that you think you're going to grow out of and you hate about yourself, they're like, no, 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 no. Wait a second. Those are the good things. So I think I was going through a lot of conflict, and he was definitely more sure. I knew I was in love with him, but I don't know. I'm the type of person that could be married to someone for 5 years and then be like, are we still hanging out? Like, I don't know.
You're
know what I mean?
so unconfident.
No, but I'm not. It's a weird thing. Yeah. It sounds awful, but I think I don't know what's going on.
Just always unsure.
But maybe not. But because I'm
dynamic?
always thinking about life and like the universe and stuff. So I'm like, oh my God, are we still married? What's happening? I know that doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't. But
No.
you must have.
No, we were a team. But yeah, I think I was resisted, and we definitely like did things that were bigger, like, or like I just moved to the States. I married him. We toured. We partied. Like, it was a lot. So I felt like I was always really cautious, and because I knew he was so talented and special, I'm like, I didn't want to affect him in any way negatively. Like, I was like, when we got married, I'm like, are you sure you want to be married? Like, what about girls? Like, don't you want them to like you? Like,
Yeah, you're a rock
so
star.
I was already like trying to protect him, yeah, you don't want to ruin or taint anything that you think is special. But he felt the same way about me, but it's hard to think that way,
Yeah.
Yeah.
You overthink.
Yeah. Talk to
Yeah.
John. It drives him crazy. Yeah. He's like, please.
Can we talk about John?
Sure, yeah.
John Doerr.
Yes.
Television's John Doerr.
Television's John Doerr. Canadian's John Doerr. Yep.
Yeah.
Mhm.
A good friend of yours.
Yes. You like John Doerr?
I love John Doerr.
Me too. I
And-
love John Doerr.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great guy. Funny
Mhm.
guy.
Mm-hmm.
I loved it was like one of the few Canadian shows that
I
on the
know.
Comedy Network
Yeah.
that were really funny.
What else? What other Canadian television do you think produces pretty good Canadian TV? If you had to or comedy,
What other
because there's a Comedy Network.
yeah.
They produce some.
Some, yeah. I
yeah.
just watched a show that's coming out soon. It's a Canadian network version of The Match Game. Yeah.
I just read about that. Yeah.
Oh, did you?
Yeah,
Yeah,
blank something. Because in England the version's called Blankety Blank.
Oh no, this is called Match Game.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
You know the people who are? Is it comedians and?
Yes, it is. I'm blanking on the host's name, but he's on Mr. D. He plays the bartender, Darren Rose, I think.
Okay.
Darren
Okay.
Rose, yep.
I
And
think I'm
Deborah
friends on Twitter.
DiGiovanni is
Amazing. Excellent.
a regular, as is Sean Cullen. And
Do you love
then-
Sean Cullen?
Yeah.
John
And-
Doerr, myself love Sean.
Well, John should be on this show too, because they
If
have
he was here, he
rotating
probably
guests.
would.
They have Janine Garofalo's been on it.
Is it already airing, or is it they taping
It
it?
starts on October 15th. Like I say, I saw a
I'm gonna watch it.
preview. They sent me a disc.
Would you do it?
Would I do it?
Yeah.
Be on it?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but they want quote unquote celebrities. It's funny
What
they
about
never say our.
Guy? Very funny, articulate, and TV savvy. There you go.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, you should do it.
I would do anything. You know what? I'm putting myself out there more. So there you
Are
go.
you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Since when?
Today.
Oh, good. So we're announcing it here
Yeah, it's
on
here.
the show.
Look at getting that spot tonight and doing this is putting myself out there for me.
Yeah. Now we didn't mention you're here in Vancouver
Yes.
because it's Thanksgiving weekend.
Yes. It's
Now a lot of
Thanksgiving.
people don't even know that you're Canadian.
No, and I try and hide it. No. Yes, I'm Canadian. I was born in Ontario. As we talked earlier, I met Mitch in Toronto, grew up. I started comedy there. I live in California now. I have a cabin in the mountains.
The one that you,
The one that was in the documentary.
the one that you and Mitch lived
Mitch
in.
and I bought it. Going back a little bit, he got a Fox deal. I remember I had a deal. I remember I was talking about all those deals. He had a bit of Fox deal. So, and he had made a movie and he paid off those debts and he bought a few things for his family. We're on the road and it started to run out a little bit of money. He's like, I should buy something. And we went on a weekend up to Big Bear, which is about an hour and a half east of Los Angeles. We stopped at this coffee shop in a place that we thought was Big Bear, but it was called Running Springs. And he was just looking at the newspaper and realized houses were cheap. So we ended up buying this cabin for $65,000. Our mortgage was like $360. And then we had a place on the road that we would go to that was really peaceful and great. And I still own it, and it's cute. And it's about an hour and a half outside Los Angeles.
Not scary.
And John Dower just bought a house near there.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
So you're neighbors.
Yes.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
You got to learn to pronounce his last name, though.
What do I call him?
I don't know, didn't you just say John Dower?
John Dower. Yeah, John Dower.
Yeah, but isn't it scary out there in the woods?
No, it's like it's people.
Oh,
People
okay.
there.
Okay, good.
Like you don't have to hatch it here. No, it's good. You got the internet.
There's indoor plumbing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Good. So where were we? Oh, yeah, Thanksgiving. So you have family here in Vancouver.
Yes. Yeah. My sister lives in Port Moody. My dad lives in Abbotsford. So I came up and came for Thanksgiving and stuff.
That's great.
Yeah.
Now you should spend more time here.
I would love to. I will, for sure. I love it.
You did a set tonight. Now, is that something that you just get itching to do?
Well, like I was saying, when Mitch died, I think being in comedy clubs and being in airports felt crazy. You know what I mean? Like airports, because we traveled all the time, and in comedy clubs, I would go to them and I'd be like, inside, I'd be like, no, but Mitch should be here and he's the best. And then I remember thinking I'm going to move to Japan and never think about comedy again. But a lot of my friends are comedians, and so anyway, I would do some comedy, but once again, and then I'm trying to I want to write a book or write something, and I want to do stand up. And I was talking to John. I'm like, why doesn't anybody ask me to do comedy? He's like, because no one knows that you're doing comedy, so you have to ask people. So I'm really grateful that you helped me get this out.
Oh, my pleasure. And
honestly,
it was fun. It was your second time on stage.
Yeah, I got introduced a second time on stage, but
yeah, and everyone was blown
okay. So
away.
Everybody on the show tonight was a lot of people's first time on stage, like we were saying earlier, and they killed.
So you didn't want too much pressure.
It was too much pressure.
Yeah.
But there is a thing about a lot of comics that I have spoken to. I think Doug Stanhope and Mitch and John. Even the first time you go on stage, you almost do really well, and then you don't remember it, and then you think, "What the fuck? This is easy. I'm going to be on Letterman next week," and then the work begins.
That's right. Years of dying.
Yeah.
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 So and I know after Mitch died, you weren't out in public much.
Yeah, and
how long did that take?
I don't really even know what that means. Yeah, Mitch died, and I lost my mind. I lost my mind. I had to get a little bit of help, and then I just I didn't go on the internet for a long time, and the internet was just coming around then. But I knew the minute I went on, it was gonna be crazy, like message. You know what I mean? Like just looking at message boards and stuff. So I didn't do that, and I went up to my cabin, and I thought I was gonna sell it, and I just sort of hung out, and then I sort of would go out and hang out with people and do things, and I'd end up drinking too much, and then I got an apartment in LA, and I hung out by myself a lot, and then just slowly kind of tried to figure it out. Yeah.
And then starting to do comedy again.
Yeah,
a little bit.
Like Mitch, Doug Stanhope, a comedian. Maybe your listeners probably have heard some of them. Mitch loved Doug Stanhope, and Doug loved Mitch. So Stanhope knew me a little bit, and then when Mitch died, he was like, "Hey, fatty, come on the road." Like he was like tough love, so he would take me on the road, but I wasn't ready or anything. But
he's a good guy.
He's an amazing guy.
Yeah.
I love him. Mm-hmm. Great guy. Have you interviewed him?
Not for the show, but I've interviewed him for the paper. Yeah,
Gotcha.
a few times.
He would do this in a second.
Probably.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know.
If you'd wanted to. How do you go about picking and choosing who you put on the show?
Only the very finest get on this show.
Who's going to be on your show next week? Even though when we're airing this, Oh, okay.
Yeah, you will be next week.
What's your ratio, human comics to not comics?
What do you mean?
Is it always comics?
They're all comics.
Okay, good.
They may not all be stand-up comics. They could be from improv or sketch or film or writers or things like that.
And one last question. Does your boss tell you, lead you, or you just pick who you want? Or
there's no boss.
Okay, so you do your own thing.
Yeah.
Does anyone say, hey, so-and-so's in town, you should do this? Or do you just contact people?
Sometimes somebody will contact me,
Mm-hmm.
and otherwise I'll see, hey, who's here? Do I have enough? Do I have an hour's worth to talk
Yeah,
to them about?
exactly. Are you bored?
No,
Are
I'm
you
not bored, but
sure? Okay.
you're deflecting a little bit.
I know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're talking about you. Hey,
Mm-hmm.
Tim told me something
Oh,
that
no.
when you started out, you used to come on and do a Scottish accent.
Oh, well, I did a Scott. I think it was based on a joke. And the premise was based on the fact that people who travel and come back with an accent have an accent, right? So
Only Canadians, though.
Well, yeah, but like, no, lots of people when they go to England, you come home and you're a bit like this, or
Yeah.
Australia. And the joke was, I'd come out talking in a Scottish accent, and the premise was that I was conceived while going over Scotland, so that's why I have the accent.
I see.
I don't do the joke anymore. I don't remember it. It's
it-
weird.
this was
People
early on.
remember jokes that I did that years ago that I don't remember.
Now, back to Mitch's deal.
Mhm.
Big deal, I would
Yeah,
say.
it was a big deal. Like
Yeah.
it was like mine was, but like hundreds of thousands. But when you say that, people were like, "Oh my god!" But paid a lot of people. And he'd had a deal the year I got a deal, but it was he's with 3 Arts, and they gave him a deal, and it was just a small deal. Like he was so ready. He said the year that I saw him in Montreal that he was so ready, and he kind of got some heat. So he got some money, and then he went out and made a movie with that money called Los Enchiladas.
Yeah, I haven't seen that, but I'd love to.
Yeah, I'll send you a copy.
Oh, please.
I will. And Mark Maron's in it. David Tell's in it. Todd Barry's in it. Comedians. Yeah, lots of people are in it.
Is it good?
It's a first movie.
Yeah.
But
funny.
You know what it is Mitch and I went to Sundance. It got into Sundance, and he played it at the thing, and it didn't really get a huge response. But it was good. But Mitch was so used to being a stand-up, like he just that immediate. So it aired at like midnight. And he was supposed to do a director's talk after, but during the movie, he got all nervous. So he took off. And they called him to the front, and he wasn't there. Because he was like, what the fuck? But I've shown it several times after he died. And because once you know Mitch, it's a big thing. And Todd Barry's amazing in it.
That's great.
Todd's amazing in it. David Tell's amazing in it. And Mark Maron's got a huge part. It's good. Mm-hmm. And they're cute.
Yeah, and it's like a historical document.
And there's a sweetness to it. Yeah. It's actually sweet.
And he wrote it and
directed it, and with his friend Brian Mallow, who's also a great comedian. He wrote it, directed, financed it, and with his girlfriend prior to me, Jana Johnson. And so there's a big thing. I would love to get it out. We're trying to get it on Netflix right now, and
what does that entail?
Well, you know what it is it's. I think Mitch would have edited it a bit. He was looking the year Mitch died. He was like, "Look, at this point, I should just put it out on DVD." And he was looking for it. And we couldn't find the print.
Oh.
And it ended up, it was in Louis C.K.'s garage somewhere. Like, I guess Louis had taken the print and was looking. I don't know, but we couldn't locate it. It was somewhere like through management. And then when Mitch died, we found it, located it. And I've shown it a couple of times, in Austin and Indiana and LA. And then some kid got a hold of it off of someone who was in the movie and put it on a torrent site, and I lost my mind. So I got in touch with this kid. I go, "Why'd you do that?" He goes, "Well, you weren't." Like, it's this very arrogant thing.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, what it needs licensing for music. So I have
musicians.
I have to put new music, because Mitch I think he used David Lee Roth, who he loved, and some things. Like, it wasn't fully licensed,
right.
All this music. So that's what I have to do. I have to do license, which I'm in the process of doing.
Full-time job.
I know. I'm not good at it.
No. So, but he got all this money, and that had to be sort of a double-edged sword. He was able to do some things.
Yes.
And then also party too much.
Well, here's the thing. The deal wasn't the double-edged sword. It was a little bit like meeting someone, falling in love, getting a little wild, hotels, some drugs. But, that is barely compared to the money we made later on. Like, we were making great money on the road because we were working so much, and, he would just always go up. Yeah, and it can make you can afford to indulge in more expensive hotels. And he wasn't a material person, first-class flights and, drugs and fun and living your life. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the drugs I mean,
what you're trying to say,
that's
yeah.
what I was getting at.
Yeah.
And
You're right.
it's
Like
certainly
money, if
not
you can't
alone.
afford something like that, no.
That's right.
Yeah.
But, I'm not drug savvy. But
Right.
even I know heroin's probably not such a good thing.
Well, any opiate isn't because you have to end up taking something every day. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's not like I think the word heroin is equal to we all know it's bad. The people who've told you heroin's bad have done a good job.
Oh, so it's not as bad?
No, it is.
Oh, it
no,
is.
no, no.
Okay,
Like
yeah.
prior to me, I remember being a teenager. I remember being a kid and hearing about someone doing heroin. I was like, that is the devil. Like, yeah, it's very haunting and it's very dark. But yeah, like I think it's any sort of opiate drug. Like it's something that you have to have every day after walking your body because physically you're not like mentally you don't want it, but you know.
But the people knew of it, and I read that there was maybe an intervention.
No, it wasn't really like that. I don't know. It wasn't really like that. It was a lot of like. Now it's not like Mitch wasn't a person that you could really intervention because he was very compelling in the sense that he's like, I'm doing better than anyone. Like he was doing really well, but he
was coping.
Here it is. Mitch would take things like that as being negative, and he didn't like negativity. I'd be like, Mitch, we're falling apart. We can't do this anymore. Like we're on the road. We're not healthy. It's endless. You know what I mean? Wasn't doing either of us any favors. And I think his thing was a lot of we got to keep rolling. We got to keep working instead of taking a break. You know what I mean? Like it was more like keep rolling, and it destroyed it. It ruined everything. So, but I'm putting it on him, and also I was driven to be like a little bit. Don't let anyone know we're gonna be okay. Like it's a lot of mistakes along the way, but neither of us were like we're doing the greatest thing. We're cool. None of that. We knew we were going down a hole, but we couldn't get off the work. A lot of things. I'll have to write about it a lot.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that making any sense? Yeah.
Kind of. I mean, I can see again not
getting
being
caught
drug
up
savvy, but just being caught up in it, and you're still able to make your gigs and put on
exactly.
a show.
But also, it's that which makes it even harder, like having to fly all the time. Like it's so many of these things put together. Instead of us just going, look, we fucked up. Let's get off the road and fix this. It was just a constant, never-ending thing. Yeah.
Well, that would be hard to just get off the road and stop, right?
But you could. Like people do it all the time. Like people are like, I need 6 months off. Let's cancel my gigs. I think it was like so much work. Like, what if we cancel a gig and then we're in trouble? Like it just was this never-ending thing. But you can't. It was us and him and me and. People were concerned, but like his manager and family wanted him. But Mitch was very much his own person too. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
like
we're responsible for ourselves.
Yeah, and also just being caught up in it.
Yeah, and working really hard and
also if you are a little bit sensitive, it
of
does.
Course I am.
No, not you. I mean him.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, you too. Sorry,
yeah.
and stop me
It's
if
my
I'm
life
going
too,
too far. But
no.
If somebody were to bring that up, I could see how that would be like an insult. Like maybe
also,
it's part embarrassment.
And you know what? Probably protecting me. Because remember I said earlier I was so concerned. Like I'm with this great person. I don't want to. It's hard to talk about it. It's emotional. Like me so concerned about him and his talent. And, we were making tons of money, working hard. I didn't want anything to bring it down. And then it become like this self-fulfilling prophecy. And him pushing me, like we both did the same thing. We both did drugs. We both fucked up, and it was hard. Yeah.
And you weren't alone in that.
No, on the planet, no. But I had probably felt more. I was ashamed and scared. I don't think he was as much. So I think he protected me. It was like you become in this bubble where you're together. But like that wasn't our whole life too. We did so many millions of things. We camped. We worked. We built a home. We wrote. We created things. But we were fucked up, we could have stepped back.
That's
easily.
Right.
We had enough money. He, I think too, before the internet, he was like, we worked so hard. What if we get off and it stops going? He spent his whole life to get gigs, and then he was like, now I have them. I can't,
keep the momentum going,
which is so crazy. I mean, God,
crazy youth.
Yeah, but something was going to happen, and it did.
Oh,
Ooh.
there we go.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if I
No.
did. I step over any?
No, obviously, I've never really
Okay.
talked. I haven't
Well,
talked much. I'm gonna write a book, but
yes.
so I don't want to talk too much. But that's a mindset that was going on. It was never
Mhm.
a fuck you, people. It's so many things that you can look back on.
Right. And I don't know if it's a function of the media or the internet
Mhm.
where
The internet
something
doesn't
like
really know anything. Yeah, I don't think.
when something like, heavy drug use
Mm-hmm.
is out there,
Mm-hmm.
that's all you tend to think. Well, that's what that person is. And as you're
Oh,
saying, no, we do all these other things.
no, well, that's what I was saying. I remember when I
We're
was
complete
like
individuals.
14, 15, and I had a Blondie poster on my wall.
Yeah.
And my sister's, a bit older. She goes, "Oh my God, look how fucking high they are." And I go, "What?" She goes, "Yeah, look at their eyes. They're like on dope." And I remember being mortified, like taking down the poster, being like, "Oh my God," and completely thinking that was that one thing. And then later you realize, oh no, you're a multi-dimensional person. But yeah, that's why I haven't really talked about the drugs very much at all, because I want people to get away and understand. Like, Mitch has gained so many fans over the years after he died, purely on his material. Like, I haven't really talked too much about it. There isn't a lot out there. I've done things, and I want people to get their own thing, and people love him. Is one thing, and I will talk about it more. This is the most I've ever talked.
Yeah, well,
And I
I
will,
felt
yeah.
like it was, in stuff that I've read, that it was
People
sort
don't
of
know
the elephant in
anything.
the room that nobody would bring it up, and I wasn't sure if I should
Well,
have.
sometimes because like people brought it up, but also at the time, like, it's also a weird thing too. Like, we were partying with tons of people too, or not, and we did tons of things. But yeah, I haven't really talked about life. I have to, because when I'm talking about Mitch's life at that point, I'm talking about my own, so it's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, what you're ready for, and it may take some time, and I'll write about it for sure.
It'll be cathartic, I bet.
Oh, 100%. Well, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, it will. Think about how much guilt and regret and love, and combined with so many things.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's hard. And being the one,
I can only imagine,
you survive, and losing someone wonderful. But yeah, it's but I think you're so right. I think that, what blew my mind is, I remember Mitch dying. I'm like, oh my God, like, I can never talk about him again. Like, what's going to happen? It's always going to be that drug thing. And, I've been, I haven't talked about it much for years, and I've written some few things. And I get contacted all the time by people that are so beyond that when I do talk about it, it's going to be about like how it really was, and like a little bit talking about like drugs are a thing, but it isn't define who you are. Like you said, like, you're not being savvy. I wasn't savvy either. Like, you could probably know a heroin or opiate addict. Like, I used to think, like, if you did heroin, you were on the ground, like, dead.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But yeah, it doesn't find you. And so not talking about it all the time was something that I chose not to do, because I want his art to speak for itself, and it does. And he has a lot of fans on their own. But I will, I am talking about it now, but I'll definitely write a bit more about it and really explain it.
Yeah, and people, I don't think it would tarnish. I mean, because it's always the undercurrent. People know this.
Of course, yeah.
So
oh my God, yeah. Oh my God,
Mitch's mom.
Mitch's mom has done. Mitch's mom passed away last year, and she, I don't think she could. She probably emailed. So many fans of Mitch's emailed her, which, right now I bet Mitch was probably, if he was, he'd be like, "Mom," but it was cathartic for her to talk to his fans, and. They knew that everyone knows, and they just spoke to him about what they loved about him despite and his material and drugs and all. So yeah, but I might be done. I'm good. I've talked.
Okay. I was going to say that it could be. It's a cautionary tale as
well. Oh, of course.
Like, just even bringing it out there could help.
Yeah.
Could help.
But no.
No.
I want. Oh, I think in itself it is. It doesn't need to be. I don't need to go to like learn.
No,
listen,
you're right.
People know. Yeah.
Just in itself.
Yeah.
You don't want to hit people.
And I want people to. If Mitch inspires people in any way, that would come around to like, oh my gosh, yeah, 100%. But that's not. I don't want that to be his or my job. Like, people know. I think that does its own. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, and I
none of
don't
that.
want to be like write an essay like kids don't because
No.
it's its own thing.
That's the worst. That doesn't
and I
help.
will never do that.
That's
yeah,
right.
yeah. And you know what? If Mitch was here to be like, do what you got to do, what you want to do in life, but also learn. Like he would hate it if I was walking around telling people not to drugs. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I didn't mean it that way.
No, I
meant
know.
just the information alone.
Of course. Yeah.
And and his art does speak for itself because I was looking online the other day and just forget how damn funny and original the jokes were.
Yeah, and you know what else? It's taking me a long time to really talk about it too because I wanted to wait till it became really fun and go, yeah, remember how fucking fun? Because, if you talk to someone in the first few years after someone dies like that, you're just so overwhelmed and feel like you have to go there. And, like I did a few articles when I put out the website and you got to be able to go, oh, yeah, like it was really ridiculous and fun. So that's what I want to do too.
And you mentioned Todd Glass earlier.
Yeah.
And of course, the clip of him doing some Hedberg jokes as Rodney Dangerfield shows that it's not just his unique delivery that makes the jokes work because they're just great jokes, no matter who delivers them.
I know
they're
when
funny
you
on
look
the page,
at them.
too.
Yeah. Like they're quoted, they're funny, and they're just kind of a neat thing. And I'm trying to write about him and just kind of what's interesting about him, like what he ended up teaching me about life and why there's a lot of love for him. I get emails or I see on Twitter and things, a lot of love for him, and it's just jokes, but people get into it. And he was also didn't really expose himself really through his material, but people feel close to him. So there's interesting things. Yeah.
You said
about who he is.
You said that the internet knows nothing. So what's the biggest misconception about him?
I think that he was this really fearful, timid guy that, it was excruciating for him to perform. Like he was driven and worked hard. Yeah. I don't want to tell too much.
Because you got the book.
No, because,
it
takes
see.
a lot.
I see.
I know it doesn't seem like it, but I don't really talk.
You have this website dedicated to his memory.
Yeah. Well, yeah, not dedicated. It's just his stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. It's from his notebook.
It's not a dedication to the Mitch Hedberg. It's just there. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It is there. So we can sort of
some
get
notebooks and pictures and notes he made. Yeah.
And some videos.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We filmed tons and tons of stuff. Yeah.
Just like goofing around?
Tons. When I met him, he practically had carried a video camera around for 6 or 7 years, and then we carried a camera, so I got lots of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's got to be a documentary.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I've been approached lots of times about that.
And is there one in the works, or you've been approached and it hasn't been
I've been approached and shown lots of stuff, and then I've kind of thought, but I want to, I'm releasing a concert film that we filmed on film. It's like a real film, concert film, so it's unseen, a whole concert film. I'm releasing that.
Why was it filmed?
Mitch and I filmed it. He got a half-hour HBO special years ago, and then they just kind of never panned out. And he was like, I'm going to do my own. He kind of had that mentality. So we hired a film crew in Minnesota at Acme, and it cost tens of thousands. It's already cost lots of money with real film.
Nice.
With two cameras, maybe 3 cameras over 4. So I'm going to release a concert actual film first. Yeah. Yep.
Well, that'll be fantastic.
Yeah.
So, and Louis C.K. obviously stole that idea.
Probably. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. This is years ago, and we were going to release it on our own. Yeah, completely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's there.
And
what's great about releasing stuff like that is Mitch filmed it himself, and a lot of stuff he filmed himself. He has the camera. I kind of want him to speak for himself. So that's why I don't talk about him all the time, too much. I like to anything because I have a lot of stuff that he spoke that I want to put out that's talking about him. Yeah.
You were there.
Yeah. Yeah.
He confided in you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great idea. And he also, I know, released CDs on his website.
Yes, the very first CD we recorded ourselves, Strategic Grill Locations. We recorded it, and we produced it, carried it around. We would take boxes, fly with them, send them to clubs, sell them after the show, and put them out on the website. And then Comedy Central approached him about his second CD, and they re-released that first one. Yeah.
So Louis C.K. is a fraud.
They're
not
all
a fraud. They're all frauds. Yeah. What do you think of?
No, they're all good. But I think Mitch saw about releasing your own things for sure.
Yeah. You see young comics, and a lot of them have maybe unconsciously or not.
Mm-hmm.
You can tell if they are Hedbergites or
You can see
Hedbergians.
them, yeah, for sure.
And what do you think of that? Do you think
I
that's
think
sort
when
of like
Mitch
an
first died, I
homage?
was upset and like kind of remorseful and upset. But now it's just what happens in comedy. I think people emulate a little bit who they love, and then they kind of go through it. And if it's someone that it sticks with, I think when he first died, I was like, oh no, like no one's gonna know it's him, and someone could steal it and never know. And then you're like, that. Why am I even worrying about that? And he's here. The internet. People can see his stuff. I can't get too upset, and I think people just find their way, and it's an honor, I guess. Yeah. Right?
Yeah, definitely it's an honor, right?
And you can
Because
see the
he's
influence
one
of a lot of different comics from other, like you see, like, oh, they've
There's
been
a
watching
Brian
it till
Regan.
There's Brian
Yeah.
Regan,
Yeah.
Dave Cook, for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Cool.
Well, Lynn,
All right.
do we have anything else we want to say about you?
Um,
Lynn Shawcroft.
Hello, my name is Lynn.
Lynn.
Lynn. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Well, come back.
I hope I didn't ramble too much. I will definitely come back.
Come back to sunny Vancouver.
Oh yes, I want to say the whole time I was here, there was lots of sun.
Yeah.
And it was great. Did I talk too much? Oh, don't
You
worry about
talked the exact amount.
it. Okay. Sounds good.
I'll do a word count and.
All right. I
Yeah.
sometimes am like, ugh, shut up.
No.
Do you ever do
See,
that?
here you're overthinking again.
I know I know. I used to date this guy. They'd be like, "How you must be exhausted. You live life 3 times before, during, and after every."
This is what
It's a female thing, maybe. Right?
I read on your blog. I don't know if it was an old one where you said, and like me, we're the same. I like to go to movies alone.
Yes, because I'll be watching it through. Yes, I did write about that.
Yeah, you can't just enjoy it by yourself if you're there with somebody because you're going, are
I'm
they enjoying
anticipating
it?
like they think this, and I better be like, well, that
we're
just
too
you got to be
empathetic.
on your own. Yeah, is that what that is? Yeah,
I think so.
it's endless.
Okay, Lynn.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Cheers.
And I hope it was painless for you.
Yeah, it was great. You know what it is? I hope I'm articulate because when I'm talking about things that are, like kind of intense or like I feel like I'm not just talking in broad generalizations. It's hard to really explain how you feel. So I hope the listeners understood what I was saying, and I love them. Bye.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hope you enjoyed that. That was a beautiful conversation, I thought, with the beautiful Lynn Shawcroft. Next week, we'll be here, as usual, 11 p.m., and our guest will be the scary Geraldson. In 2 weeks' time, we will be talking to, an extra long one, with Mike Kaplan, who was just in town this weekend at the Comedy Mix. So, keep listening. Keep tuning in. Talk to you next week.